Hi, this is Braden Holtby.
Hey, this is Tanner the Bulldozer Bozer.
Hi, this is Brian Burke from Toronto, Ontario.
This is Daryl Sutter.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Agro from Sportsnet Central.
This is Jay Onright.
This is Quick Dick coming to you from Tofnell, Saskatchewan.
Hey, everybody. My name is Steele Fleury.
This is Kelly Rudy.
This is Corey Cross.
This is Wade Redden.
This is Jordan Tutu.
My name is Jim Pattison.
Hey, it's Ron McLean, Hockey Night in Canada and Rogers Hometown Hockey, and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. Happy Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. We got a great episode in store for you here today. Before we get there, let's get to today's episode sponsors, Carly Clausen and Windsor Plywood, builders of the podcast studio table. Let me tell you, this slab of wood looking sharp. Today I've been spending a little more time in the studio over the last couple days, a few more interviews than normal in a week, and even had a buddy of mine come in, and he'd never seen the table before, and it just looked sharp. He was saying, like, man, this is pretty nice. I'm going, it's probably the most expensive piece of equipment I have in the studio is the fine work from Windsor Plywood. I know I was creeping on their Instagram page and looking at some of the slabs they got in right now. I tell you, if you want a river table, you should head over to Instagram and take a look, or stop into Windsor Plywood or give them a call, 780-875-9663, because when you want quality, this is the group, Windsor Plywood, all right? Clay Smiley and Prophet River, the story goes, he wanted a Cooper rifle. He's a teacher, little old teacher out in Paradise Valley. And, he does a little bit of work. Pretty soon he's got said Cooper rifle from the good old US of A. Then he starts importing things. He starts helping some other people. Pretty soon he's going, holy crap, I might have something here. And here we sit in 2020, and Prophet River has grown into a major retailer of firearms, optics, and accessories, serving all of Canada. If you're interested in guns, accessories, firearms, you got it. I suggest you go to ProfitRiver.com and check out Clay Smiley and the team over at Prophet River. Clay is one of the best. Now, we have a new one today. Welcome to the podcast, T1 Ranch Supply. Now, they offer steel windbreakers, steel fence posts, 3.5, 4.5, 7-inch, steel paneling, steel gates. They even offer corral building, so if you want them to build it for you, they can. Or you can come buy the supplies yourself. They wanted me to highlight the steel windbreaker, this giant 24-foot by 8 feet high on a steel frame. It even has the little hook up at the top so you can pick it up with the tractor and move it around. And then the windbreak itself is guardrails, steel guardrails. If you're interested, 780-205-2809. Give Jason a call or shoot him an email, jason.newman@tbar1.com. I think I said steel there long enough. You know where I'm going. They will last so long, you could put it in your will. Jen Gilbert and team over at Coldwell Banker. Since 1976, for 40 years, they've been dedicated realtors of Lloydminster and the surrounding area. They're passionate about our community, and they pride themselves on giving back through volunteer opportunities and the partnerships as often as they can. They know where home is, truly where awesomeness happens. Coldwell Banker, Citizad Realty, for everything real estate, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Give them a call, 780-875-3343. And if you got that house, I highly suggest you look into a mortgage broker. Don't look any further than Jill Fisher. Now, obviously, her name says it all. And if you don't know a whole lot about your mortgage rate and that kind of thing, I would just suggest calling or looking her up. She proudly serves the areas of Lloydminster, Bonnyville, Cold Lake, and Vermilion, and she looks forward to working with all of you for your mortgage needs. As I keep harping on right now, mortgage rates, there's talks of them possibly going up. I'm sure Jill's going like, you're not a speculator, just shut up. And I'm going, hey, people need to know that the rates right now have never been lower in history. So maybe take a little boo at what you got for a mortgage rate and give Jill a call to see if she can help. 780-872-2914 or visit her at jfisher.ca. All right? Thanks to Read and Write. We just put up the Sean Newman cutout. I don't know. My ugly mug sitting at Factory Sports. I don't know if they actually have it out yet. I think it's sitting in the back room drinking beer on coffee time or something. But there is a cutout, and that comes from Mrs. Deanna Wandler and team over at Read and Write. They're making me look sharp. Finally, Gartner Management is a Lloydminster-based company specializing in all types of rental properties to help meet your needs. Whether you're looking for a small office space or 6,000 square foot commercial space, give Wade Gartner a call, 780-808-5025. You head into any of these businesses, you let them know you heard about them on the podcast, all right? Now, let's get on to that T-Bar 1 tale of the tape. Originally from Lampman, Saskatchewan, he was the assistant coach for the Minot Minotaurs, assistant coach for the Camrose Kodiaks, and he's been in Lloydminster since the 2018-19 season, currently in his third season as the head coach and GM of the Lloydminster Bobcats. I'm talking about Nigel Dubé. So buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast. Today I'm joined by head coach and GM of the Lloyd Bobcats, Nigel Dubé. So first off, thanks for hopping on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Sean.
You're starting to become, I was looking back, it was August 28th, your first full season, you were episode 31, and then in September again, you hopped on for episode 118, and here you are at 155. So you're becoming a recurrent guest, which is cool. I wish it was under better circumstances.
Yeah, hopefully moving forward, we can find some that we're talking about more positive things than where we're at today.
I mean, it just seems to never end with COVID, doesn't it? You get one positive, and then it's just like a little dance. You take one step forward, a couple back again.
Yeah, well, and the crazy part to think we're, a year into this beast, and it's just been working on things, and I don't know if it's ever really went smoothly for many days in a row before trying to address something else. And at the end of the day, it is a pandemic, and COVID is here, but I don't think anybody ever wants to get used to that.
Oh, and I mean, you guys, I'm sure you're going to talk about this, but in order to get back and play, it's not like you get to have a full building. Guys can just go do whatever they want. Like, in order to get back and have a return to play with the AJHL, you guys are going to be on some pretty strict rules. Even just play a shortened season between, March and May?
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing that the return to play set out was an isolation at your home, come into the community, get tested, go for another isolation for 7 more days, get tested again, need the negative test back before starting team activity, and then test it weekly after that, with including, increased sanitation again, increased protocols, nobody in the rink, 2 teams playing each other in an empty rink, and then everything around there that tightened everything up a lot to give the opportunity to play through May.
Well, and if people haven't, that's a lot, right? Like right there, that's a lot, right? To ask you guys aren't the NHL. I don't think anybody has to think about it any further than that. Like even the WHL is going to struggle with no fans in the building. The NHL is. They're struggling. So the AJHL, to get to a point where you could feasibly bring it back, abide by the guidelines, and still make a go of it for a few months to give. I always think, you're a junior hockey player. I'm a junior. My heart bleeds for the 20-year-olds, man, that are sitting there going, the highs and lows, we're going back. We're not coming back. We're going back. We're not coming back.
Yeah, well, and then the phrase, I think, next week may never be used again in the terms because, from the shutdown, it was, well, next week, and a week turns to a month. And, our 20-year-olds here, even the acquisitions that we made there right before or right after leading up to the return to play, for us to bring in some guys, fill out the roster, set things up for our 20-year-olds to have success. And a lot of guys didn't go with the 20-year-olds because the development model of the season. But, like you look at Gunnar Kinnenberg, for us, he's our captain, and we talk about turning the culture around, and he might be the main piece of that. And you want to create an opportunity for him so that he can create success on the ice to set him up for next year. And a lot of excitement talking to him, leading into the return to play, and then get on the call and be like, hey, we're not going right now. You're heartbroken as a coach to have to make that call. Yeah,
that's frustrating. Maybe for myself, I know when I saw it all over Twitter, it's like, oh man, that's, being from the border city, we certainly understand. You're not the first one to deal with funny things that come on being half on Saskatchewan, half Alberta, but maybe walk us through what exactly is going on right now, Nigel, so people can have a little bit of an idea of what has happened? Because, I mean, obviously it announced AJHL is coming back, and then the next big announcement was the Bobcats aren't going to be a part of it, and you're right in the middle of it. So maybe give us a picture of what's been going on.
Well, we go back to the fall, Sean, and in the fall there, we started out our season in Kitscoty. We went out there because the Saskatchewan restrictions were different than Alberta. October 16th, we played Sherwood Park in Kitscoty, and that was our last day out there. And then Saskatchewan moved because games started in Saskatchewan, so games could be played in Lloydminster, though they were already being played in Alberta. So October 17th, we moved into the Civic again. We got going through there into November, and that was about the same point that, you know, minor hockey was allowed to follow Hockey Alberta. We were allowed to follow the AJHL. Then we got to the end of November when everything went back into a shutdown pretty much across Western Canada, I think, for the most part. Restrictions were a little bit different in Alberta versus Saskatchewan. And then over the course, pretty much since the new year, you know, with our league working on the return to play, moving that forward to Alberta Health Services, we were sending that off to the city of Lloydminster, who then worked with the Saskatchewan government and the Ministry of Health along those lines. And of course, everything was promising, looking really good, a lot of optimism. And then on Tuesday, it was pretty much our housing didn't work. Our billeting didn't work, couldn't use billets, needed to create a bubble for our players like Saskatchewan Western Hockey League had to form. And that was all based on Saskatchewan. And, you know, that was a common question of, you know, I got a text this morning that was, I thought you were Alberta because you don't have to pay provincial sales tax. It was from one of my older coaches. And I said, isn't that wild? Like, we don't have to pay provincial sales tax. We're Alberta, but we're following, the whole city is following the Saskatchewan government, and that's where it left us. So we worked around the clock to try and make something that worked for the Saskatchewan Ministry of Health and the Saskatchewan government. And every time it felt like we got to somewhere and checked the box, they put another box at the bottom of the list that we had to try and figure out. And Thursday morning there, they just said, whatever we have, we can't let you go. It's not going to work.
You know, I think of through the last year, there's been certain things that being in Lloyd has been very beneficial for. I think of some of the restaurants that got to stay open. And meanwhile, if you drove, you know, 20 minutes down the road, half an hour down the road to Vermilion, they were under stricter guidelines, right? No in dining. And here we sit, and you got every team in the league can go back to play. You got, how many guys even live on the SAS side, Nigel?
Well, we would have two. That would have been our number. That would have been our number two.
But so they're not going to care because it doesn't matter where your house is. It matters that Lloydminster is governed by Saskatchewan Health Authority.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to say, Sean, like we're very thankful on that side of Saskatchewan, and our sponsors have been able to keep their doors open, restaurants, businesses, and all that. So we don't want to take away from that part of the Saskatchewan, and that's kind of the balancing act. But when it comes to the housing, that was the big thing. Like, we're not even in Saskatchewan. And many questions were asked too, like, why can't you go to Kitscoty? Why can't you go outside of town and be outside of town? Well, at the end of the day, we couldn't come back into Lloydminster. They wouldn't even allow us to bring our players in at any, you know, Friday was when they were supposed to come get tested. And they just said, nope, you can't bring them in then even. You can't bring them in. Can't bring them in
where? Into Lloyd?
Into Lloyd, into our billet homes. So the only way we would have been able to do it was a full bubble. You know, we worked out with the college. They would have been in the college in the spin wheels. They would have had their own room, no shared spaces, no common areas, nothing like that. Meals would have had to have been catered in, individually wrapped. For them to go from Lakeland to the rink, to the college, or from the college to the rink at the time, they couldn't even carpool over in the vehicles. We needed to have team transportation, which puts them over there. And that was the only two places they could go. So our office, which is in the Alberta side, has a gym in it, all that kind of stuff, good spacing. We couldn't use that, you know, and that's kind of the things that the obstacles, the hurdles, whatever you may want to look at it, that we were trying to get through.
Well, I'm glad you're on my podcast because you can't say it, but I'm going to say it. The more you talk, the more I go, man, that is batshit crazy that you could go to all the lengths of getting COVID tests done weekly. I mean, you just no fans in the building, keep them isolated minus their immediate household. And that still isn't good enough. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty telling of where we're at right now, to be completely honest. And I know you can't say too much, but nobody's going to find me because I look at it and I go like, as you talk more, I go like, oh, my head hurts, right? Like you think like all these kids, all they want to do is just play a little bit of hockey. And I know somebody's sitting out there going, yeah, but we're in the middle of a pandemic and there's more important things in hockey. It's like, well, yeah, sure, true. But like when you're willing to go to such lengths to ensure that they are safe, only get told, no, because you're sitting right where you are. God, that's a crux of the old border, isn't it? Like you're so close.
Well, and it's just, I never thought moving here 2 years ago, moving to a border city and, talking to the mayor the other day, our motto is border city built. And I said, that's magnified in this whole situation on the idea of being border city built right now and what that brings with it. I would have never thought that this is where we'd be at.
Now, I listened to you and Kurt Price. I thought Kurt, good old Kurt. Kurt's so like, he's a vet of the old industry. And I thought one of the things that came out of you two talking is you said you're in talks with 16 communities. Is that still going on?
Yeah, we're still in talks here, and even this morning we're trying to work things out. Everything would have to be approved by Alberta Health Services and by the AJHL, but still working across Alberta, try and find a community where we would pretty much have to lift everything up, move it there, find billet homes or find housing for all of our players. Pretty much set up everything right there, begin there. So the support's been unbelievable here in the last, few days since it came out. Yesterday I had a parent that their son had played on another team, reached out, had an idea and said, I don't know if you're listening to ideas. And I said, well, I'll listen to whatever you have. And they went to work and I got a call back later yesterday that said, well, there's a lot of red tape and even trying to get into communities and stuff. And they apologized because they couldn't get anywhere past stage one. But we're in some, some communities here where we're in discussion right now where the community's on board, but there's, again, a lot of boxes that we have to check from the requirements of Alberta Health Services and also the requirements of the league to be housed there. But we're trying to do everything we can here to give our guys, whether a 20-year-old or a 17-year-old, an opportunity to play in our league that's going to start up here soon.
So in other words, what you're talking about doing is, I'm just going to pick on some towns that are relatively close. You're talking about moving the entire team to, say, Vermilion, Wainwright, Kid Scotty, somewhere with a rink, and then the facilities available to essentially uproot not only 20-some kids, but then your coaching staff would have to move because they wouldn't want you coming out of Lloyd to go to said town. Probably your training staff. Oh man, that is not a small endeavor, is it?
No, it's not. And again, hockey world's small. The support's been unbelievable, and trying the efforts to go into here is from everybody, people that don't know our players, people that don't know our organization, but want to give kids the opportunity. I think that's the big thing. But you're looking at everything across the board. And then the other part is to try and find a facility that's going to keep the ice until the end of May. So we had a few that were really interested right out of the gate. But ice would be coming out at the end of April, and our ice rental through May wouldn't be significant enough. And of course, you go back to the dollars and cents of junior hockey to keep a facility open and running for a whole month in the warmer times of Alberta isn't cheap and isn't something that we have the extra for right now.
Here's probably a crazy idea because they're not playing yet, but since you're stuck as a Saskatchewan team, and I put that in parentheses, have you reached out to the SJHL at all?
Well, that's something I've talked to the GMs there to see what's going on and where they're getting to, because in my meetings with the Sask government, that came up a lot of the SJHL, the SJHL is looking to do this and the Western Hockey League's bubbled and the SJHL is looking, you see the interviews across there of what they're trying to do. And, for us to go and do that, it sounds like some of the teams there are just, it's not going to work for them or whatever's happening. But then you get to a Hockey Canada level, the sanctioning stuff that goes into the potential of that, it just becomes a nightmare on top of what has already seemed to be.
Yeah, I kind of figured as much. I just right now, if I'm thinking about it, you're not worried about winning the Royal Bank Cup. You're worried about finding ways to give your kids, especially the 20-year-olds, but that I would say all the kids, right? The ability to play some hockey, further their career, but just to have, a bit of a season because, no fan's going to get to watch it unless it's online, that kind of thing. And so if they're saying you're a Saskatchewan team, you just wonder why they can't. And I know it's way more complicated than this. They just can't sign an amendment that says you can go play with the SAS teams in a bubble for a month. And because that's all it is for them too, right? Like, I mean, at this point, it's not like Lloydminster wasn't a part of the SJ at one point. The Lancers were 1982 to 1988. They were once right there. I mean, not saying you want to go down that. That'll open up a whole different rabbit hole. I just go like, if it's about playing some hockey, man, uprooting the entire team faculty to go to, man, obviously the rinks in little towns in Alberta that would probably house you. Now Irma comes to mind because they're a nice little spot too. But then to have billets and everybody take care of you, man, that's a huge undertaking. No different if you went and played the other way. And I guess you've probably been sitting there in what day in isolation now, Nigel? How many days?
Well, this would be the 8th day for us, or the ninth day now. Friday was the 7th, 8th, 9th. This is our 9th day. So our players are still committed to it. So we're day 9 here, and once we get past this again, it's trying to get the approval from Alberta Health and by our league too. Those days add up, and at some point here we're gonna have to see. But a meeting here to try and see where we're at. I know billeting. We're almost halfway there in billets in one community. And that's a long stretch because these people have never billeted before, never really seen billeting, but the love that they have for hockey and taking somebody.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Well, if anyone is listening to this, it comes out tomorrow. So, I mean, it'll be, when will that be? March 1st. March 1st tomorrow. Or today if you're listening to this, I guess. If there's companies out there, if there's people out there that want to get a hold of you, want to find ways to help, have ideas on maybe some things that could maybe move you forward, is there any way that people can reach out and help? And if so, what are the ideas you're hoping to tackle?
Well, if they want to reach out, email or people have pulled my phone number off of our team website there and just gave me a direct call. And, some have made calls around, whether it be to their mayor or whether it be to a community member or to a team that, has already been shut down from Hockey Alberta, whatever level they may be at, and just reach out and see what they have going on there. And, like I said, the big one's the ice and keeping the ice until the end of May. That's probably the biggest before we get to the second stage. But if there's some housing communities, and we've talked to a couple junior B communities about their billeting programs and stuff. And if anybody's got ideas, I listen to all of them. So just reach out, give me an email, give me a shout.
Yeah, I assume you've already thought of all of these things, but you mentioned Lakeland College here in Lloyd, but by staying in Lloyd, that keeps you in Lloyd, which causes problems. Have you gone so far, and I'm spitballing here as we go along, but I assume you've done the same thing in Vermilion then as well, at Lakeland College is there?
Yeah, it's the same connecting body on the governing body on the school there. But I've went and I've reached out to a place north of Edmonton that could house us, feed us, and everything like that. But the bill that came across that per month was just over $51,000 for players and players. So we're looking at $153,000 just for room and board there before we step on the ice, before we do that. And we talk about nobody in the stands and nobody going on in a good year, let alone anytime you have that. And our revenue stream wouldn't be there to even come close to that.
You are getting to be a part of the 50-50 that they're doing though with the Dub and the AJHL. Is that going to come to you guys?
Yeah, the jackpots for junior, we sarcastically kind of joked about if, we didn't receive the Saskatchewan funding, but the Saskatchewan government shut us down. So we're hopeful that we do qualify. Colleen Young, had spoke to the idea that we didn't receive the SJHL money, and we're in all the meetings and stuff with the jackpots for junior hockey. So we're hopeful for that.
Yeah, hopefully that can help lend a hand at least. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I know when Kurt brought it up with you, when you sat with him about Saskatchewan government not allowing you to get any of that money, but then doing what they're doing now, it's like, oh man, the hypocrisy is pretty tough, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's frustrating. It's it breaks a person's heart for our players, and again, understanding what's going on around us. But just we're going to have to sit back right now and watch our league that we're a part of start up here on the return to play that was approved. Our office, we talked about this, Sean, like our office, our billets, everything's in Alberta. The Service Sports Center, which we even talked to the city about, hey, we'll move there if that means being in Alberta when the Civic's, 150 feet from the border. But the whole idea that the city of Lloydminster is under Saskatchewan. But it's just disheartening to kind of go through this and put the long days in here. And we feel like we're trying to climb a pretty slippery high hill.
It's lines on a map.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, and you can't even distinguish the dot from the line. That's how close it is. That's tough. Well, I feel for you. And if there's anything we can do or the listeners can do, or if anyone has some good ideas, because I'm sure there's some good ideas out there. You've probably explored 90% of them. I know you'd even talked about the Bible camp to the north of Lloyd, trying to figure a way to make that work. So you've explored some and exhausted a lot of options.
Well, we looked at the Bible camp Pleasant View out there, and again, trying to get that place fired up in a real quick turnaround. And then some of the requirements that they wanted with bringing in professional cleaners on the weekly and having a chef and having all that. We looked at the idea of living quarters, like rig shacks, where everybody would have their own room and moving those in and pretty much creating our own community and setting things up where we bring in fresh water and we do all that creates a bubble. And to go from there and putting them in hotels. We looked at hotels because then they were in individual rooms. You try and rent hotels, whether you get a weekly rate or a monthly rate for 3 months, and we're looking at 80 plus days of some kind of bubble. You're up over 80,000 plus just before you put a meal in you or breakfast in you, even if it's just cereal. And that was the tough part with trying to sort through this to come to an agreement with the Saskatchewan government and then the Ministry of Health, was the idea that we're an extended season from March till May. We're not the Western Hockey League bubble where it's a short 6 to 8 week turnaround. We're a 12-week and the SJ and the options they've looked at is we're an extended time period. And that's the same thing. If we created a bubble, whether it be any of those options, and our players outside of being at the rink, when they go back to that, they would just have to stay in their room. And then mental health comes into that. Well, how do I tell, a 16 to 21-year-old that for 8 hours to 10 hours outside of the 4 that were at the rink, you just have to be in your room. So there's no intermingling. There's no common spaces. There's nothing like that. You just go to your room. That's all it would be, live in a bubble where, you can put an Xbox, you can put a big TV in front of kids. At the end of the day, they're kids, and try and do that for 3+ months. We're in isolation here on day 9, and I've shoveled my driveway with the little snow that we get and shovel it and go back and walk in my backyard and try and get out, try and get moving. I would struggle for 3 months to just go back to a room, and that's what I would have had to do. I would have had to go back, been in my room. We would have had to do all of our calls over Zoom and do all that. And, it's just, I think to a degree, it just came completely unrealistic.
You're making my head hurt. That's like all the tape you got to jump through.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious, what do the other teams in the AJ have to abide by?
Well, they're the return to play set out where pretty much they're at their billet homes and to the rink and it's reduced. But they don't have to look at a complete bubble, right? So, you can probably go and make a sandwich in your kitchen and have supper with your billet family, where we wouldn't have had that option if they were going outside. So, from that standpoint, from the AJ's return to play, it's the billets are filling out the daily app and stuff like that. Players fill out the daily app and whatnot. But it was a whole new world, in Saskatchewan.
Well, I appreciate you coming on to talk a little bit about this. I know you're probably getting hit up from multiple different people, and your brain's probably going on lack of sleep and everything else as you try and exhaust every single option out there. As the community knows, Nigel, you're not a guy to sit back and not try and do things. So I appreciate you hopping on and sharing a little bit about this. I hope you guys can find a way to, I mean, when you put in this much time to just find a way to play some hockey games, like this is a new one. And once again, being on the border city presents its challenges. I didn't think anyone would think this would be one of them. So I hope you find a way. And if we got to call you I don't know, I'm going to throw out the Irma. I'll show some love to Irma, the Irma Bobcats for a season or for a few months. I think that'd be a cool way to see you guys suit up for a few more games.
No, I appreciate you having me on, Sean, and the support of this too, and just getting the voice out there and understanding that it's not a team decision, it's not a league decision, it's not an Alberta provincial decision, it's a Saskatchewan decision, and that's the big thing. And that's the tough part. And we appreciate the support that everybody that's reached out and same thing, confused of the whole situation. And hopefully we can come to something here in the next day or two that we can get things sorted. And whether, that's finding one community or the other to uplift and move to, and be proud to represent Lloydminster in another city for a short period of time.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Nigel, and all the best. Hopefully we get some good news, or you hear some good news here soon.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Hey, folks, thanks for joining us today. If you just stumbled on the show, please click subscribe. Then scroll to the bottom and rate and leave a review. I promise it helps. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, we will have a new guest sitting down to share their story. The Sean Newman Podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcast fix. Until next time.